Hey, it's Alex at Motoroso.com, and in this video, we're going to be taking a close-up look at the new Rival 4x4 full underbody skid plate system for the 2024 and up 4th generation Toyota Tacoma. And some of these skid plates are the same application as the 6th gen 4Runner, which is going to be 2025 and up, as well as the 2025 plus Land Cruiser 250 with some nuances. So make sure you pay attention to which exact skid plates work with which. Now, we're also going to show you a step-by-step detailed how-to installation guide on my 4th generation Tacoma, which is a non-hybrid, and that is a different skid plate in the transmission. I'll cover that. There's two different options there, whether you have the hybrid or not. Now, as usual, we're also going to put links to all the products that we discuss in the description of this video. Those links will take you over to Motoroso.com, where you can shop with us. If you find this video helpful, please do consider shopping with us. That's what supports what we do here, and we love helping our customers with their project builds, so you can reach us there on live chat. Call us toll-free at 833-MOTOROSO. We'd love to earn your business as a customer. Now, of course, Toyota is known for having built the suspension and drivetrain components of all these vehicles to be able to do some pretty decent off-roading. The bottom line is that most people never take them to the places they're actually capable of going, because most people are just not as cool as you. But if you're watching this video, it's because you already know that you're thinking about taking your 4Runner or your Tacoma off-road, and you know you need some protection to make sure that you don't damage those underbody components. And that's a really smart move. I consider these skid plates to be cheap insurance, because yeah, you might get an underbody component like hung up on a trail, and you might get stuck and you might need help getting out, scratch up your frame a little bit. That's going to eventually rust. That's not great, but that's kind of like a best case scenario. That's just inconvenient. In a worst case scenario, you might smash your transmission or your transfer case on something really hard and do some serious damage, leave some fluid on the trail, not be able to get out of there, and spend thousands repairing your Tacoma or your 4Runner, and you don't necessarily want to deal with any of that stuff. Now, in addition to that, a skid plate system is also going to make it easier to do some serious off-roading. If you have an obstacle, instead of getting hung up, it's actually going to provide a nice smooth surface for you to slide across that surface, allowing you to go more places and in general, just have more fun. The reason we choose Rival 4x4 for our skid plates is because they're the #1 manufacturer and supplier of skid plates in the aftermarket, selling over 1 million of these things every year. And for good reason. They've got great designs and excellent production quality. These are made out of 1/4 inch aluminum. Now, you might think steel for skid plates because it's so much tougher, but the bottom line is that 1/4 inch aluminum is also extremely strong, but it's also a lot lighter and it's not going to corrode. If you get a nice gouge in a powder-coated steel skid plate, that's eventually just going to start rusting pretty quickly and deteriorating, and it's just not going to look good, but it's also eventually maybe just going to rust all the way through. Aluminum's not going to do that, and you save all that weight, which is frankly, on a vehicle where you're taking it off-road, you're already probably loading it down a ton. You might want to keep your weight down, but also when you're putting them on and off, it's just going to be a lot easier. So we love aluminum as a material. It also allows for them to do this deep stamping, give it a much more unique design and style. They can stamp these holes into it as well to make sure you get ventilation and drainage, because inevitably you're going to get fluids, hopefully just water, but potentially other fluids inside your skid plates, and that's going to help everything flow out, as well as keeping air moving, especially on the hybrid. Very important. You can get a lot of heat to build up in there. You want that air to be moving through. And lastly, the way that they design these things, everything just bolts right up. There is absolutely no drilling, cutting, fabrication required, and in some cases they're even providing new, much stronger additional cross members to provide extra support to protect your valuable components. So we love Rival 4x4 for their products, and this is going to be going on my 4th generation Tacoma. Can't wait to walk you through all the different options here. Now, it is 4 different components that they've built for the Tacoma, but there are 5 separate part numbers due to there being the hybrid version. So let's start with the engine skid plate. Now, that is going to cover from just underneath the front bumper all the way back to just the cross member just behind the trailing edge of the lower control arm. Now, of course, TRD is offering their TRD skid plate. It's a nice product, but it's only going to cover to the front of the upper control arm. It doesn't actually cover all the way back. So you're getting more protection with the Rival 4x4 skid plate, and arguably a stronger, tougher, and lighter product. It also offers a really nice window that you can just pop that window out so you can access your oil filter for nice and easy oil changes. You don't have to take the whole skid plate off. Now, at time of making this video, there are two versions of the Tacoma rolling out. For many of the versions that don't have 4x4, they are not including a cross member there just under the engine. And so currently, this skid plate is really only made to mount up to the versions of the Tacoma that already have that cross member for mounting a skid plate to. That includes the TRD Off-Road, the Trail Hunter, the TRD Pro, and a couple of others. At the end of the day, you just need to look under there and see if you've got that cross member. Now, we gather that Rival is going to come up with a solution. In other words, they're going to make a cross member that you can install. So stay tuned. When that is available, we will put that in the description of this video so that you can also buy that version of skid plate so they'll work on any version of the Tacoma. And then regarding the new 6th generation 4Runner 2025 and up, as well as the new 2025 Land Cruiser 250, that is going to be the exact same skid plate as the new Tacoma. So that is one part number that's going to cover all of those new applications. Moving on down the line, now you've got your transmission skid plate. And that, of course, going to protect the transmission, obviously, but in addition to that, they've built in these additional wings, and these wings have extra ventilation because those are protecting the catalytic converter. So they want air to be able to get in and out of there, protect that. But what the idea there is not to protect your catalytic converter from impact it might make on the trail. That's pretty unlikely. This is actually to prevent the rampant theft that is happening, and Toyota's kind of known for having easy to access and easy to steal catalytic converters. So this transmission skid plate, if you don't even think you're going off-roading, you might want to add this just to protect your catalytic converters against theft. But as part of this whole skid plate system, it's going to make it much harder for anybody to steal those catalytic converters off of your vehicle. As I mentioned in the opening of the video, there are two versions of the transmission skid plate. One for the non-hybrid and one for the hybrid. This is the shorter one that goes on the non-hybrid. I've got the standard turbo 2.4 liter. It's basically the same exact thing. It's just a little bit longer for the hybrid version. Then down the line, you've got your transfer case skid plate. And this comes with an additional steel cross member that's going to provide additional bracing and support to make sure that this skid plate protects that very, very delicate, frankly, and very important transfer case to make sure that thing doesn't get smashed up when you're out there on the trail. And then regarding the 6th generation 4Runner and the new 2025 and up Land Cruiser 250, it's not going to be the non-hybrid version. It's going to be the hybrid version of this transmission skid plate, and that is going to be the same application as the Tacoma for that new 4Runner and Land Cruiser as well. And the last set of skid plates you'll see right in front of me, these are for the lower control arm, also called the A-arm. Now the A-arms, a little bit harder to bash those on the trail, but the bottom line is if you do, you don't want to. They will, if they get dented or dinged, they're gonna start to corrode. It's a pretty important component. They're relatively tough, but this is gonna make sure that they don't get hung up and everything slides across the trail in those most extreme situations like you might find in Moab or anywhere you're doing some serious rock crawling. We're just going to go ahead and add these to my Tacoma anyway because we're going to be doing some big suspension modifications, making sure that my Tacoma can go anywhere I want to point it. And these A-arm skid plates will also fit the new 2025 and up 6th generation 4Runner, but these are not going to be applicable to the new Land Cruiser 250, and we're not sure if they're going to make skid plates for that application, but we'll put that in the description if they do. All right, so there's not a whole lot of technical details to talk about with skid plates. We've covered off on everything, and there are, as I mentioned, 4 different components with multiple different part numbers, 5 at this moment, maybe 6 when they all come out with that subframe. Now, if you'd like to buy these, there's links in the description to everything that I've just talked about, and those links will take you over to Motoroso.com where you can shop with us. And if you found this helpful, please do, because that's what supports what we do here. And we're about to show you a detailed step-by-step how-to installation guide, so you probably will find that helpful. Let's go ahead and dive into that now.
We're going to start our install with the A-arm skid plates. Rival supplies these nut inserts and all the bolts needed. The 2 longer bolts will go in closer to the frame, and the smaller bolt is used closest to the wheel. Start by placing the nut insert up into the outermost hole that's already in the lower control arm here. You can thread the small bolt and washer partially into the nut insert to hold it in place, and then the Rival skid plate is notched at the mounting point so you can slide the skid plate into place over that bolt and let it hang. Next, you can pass one of the long bolts up through the hole in the lower control arm so it passes through the top side of the lower control arm. Then grab one of those nuts with the L-shaped arm on it and make sure that the L-shaped arm is facing down, thread that onto the top of the bolt. You can then let that drop down and the L part of the arm will stop the nut from spinning so you can tighten the bolt. Do the other bolt exactly the same way, and then repeat this whole process on the other side, and that's your A-arm skid plates installed. Moving on to the engine skid plate, first remove whatever skid plate or covers are there now. The hardware for the engine skid plate has 4 25mm bolts, and the 2 longer bolts are 40mm. Using 2 of the shorter bolts and washers, thread them into the crossmember where the rear of the skid plate will end. You can then slide the skid plate on and hang it from those bolts. Now the longer 40mm bolts and spacers will go in the middle mounting point. The skid plate has a large opening to be able to pass the spacers up through, then slide them forward, and then the bolts will thread into the OEM mounting points here. The last 2 short bolts thread into the front mounting points, and then you can tighten all the hardware, and that's your engine skid plate installed. Now moving on to the transmission skid plate, this has more of the nut inserts and 4 25mm bolts and spacers. At the trailing edge of the engine skid plate, there is 1 threaded hole already. It's recommended that you thread a bolt into this hole first to cut the threads, then remove the bolt. This will make it easier to install when you're putting the skid plate in. At the rear mounting points, use 2 of the nut inserts by passing the nut part up into the hole, then bending the tabs out to hold it in place. You can then place 2 of the supply bolts in those mounting points, and then the skid plate can slide over those bolts and hang in place. Then back up towards the front mounting points, you can insert the 1 bolt into the threaded point you already cleared, and then use another of the nut inserts on the other hole that does not have threads. Now you can tighten all of your hardware, and that's your transmission skid plate installed. Now moving on to the transfer case skid plate. You'll have 4 nut inserts and 4 bolts and washers. At the trailing edge of the transmission skid plate, identify the 2 openings that will require the nut inserts and place your nut inserts there and bend the tabs to hold them in place. Additionally, locate this hole along the frame rail and place another nut insert there, and this is where you're going to be mounting the supplied crossmember from Rival. Now sadly, our video footage got corrupted and we lost the footage of the final shots of the crossmember going in, so unfortunately we're going to have to reference this photo, but you can see the orientation of the crossmember and how the skid plate mounts to the crossmember here. Get this all lined in this orientation and drop your hardware in there, and then once you've got the crossmember in place and the skid plate holes lined up with all your nut inserts, just tighten all your hardware, and that's your full skid plate system from Rival installed and ready to hit the trail.
All right, if you'd like to buy these skid plates, there's links to everything in the description of this video, and those will take you over to Motoroso.com where you can shop with us, and we'd love to earn you as a customer, so head on over. You can reach us there on live chat as well, or call us toll-free at 833-MOTOROSO. Love to help you out with your Tacoma or your new 4Runner or Land Cruiser 250, all of it. We love this stuff. It's so fun making these for you, but it doesn't work unless you shop with us. So if you'd like to learn more about suspension too, we've got a new Eibach lift kit video coming out for the Tacoma. We'll put a link to that right there. That's a neat product and a very, very good value. You might want to check that one out as well. Thanks for watching.